Hello everybody, I'm Phil Liggett and welcome to our ongoing coverage here on SBS of the Tour de France. It's turning out to be a war of attrition now. We're in the south because it's hotter than ever, and the riders who took it hard in the Alps are now finding it very hard on the flatter roads as well. Let's remind ourselves of the riders prepared to leave Marseille here as to the overall situation. Miguel Indurain, still the clear leader of a Tour which didn't change its overall positions yesterday, leading by more than 3 minutes ahead of Alvaro Mejia of Colombia. Zenon Yazcoula is third. But look at these time gaps now as we also look at the two Australians, Bill Anderson and Neil Stevens. Johan Bruneel is more than half an hour behind, Dag Otto Lauritsen more than 1 hour behind, and the last man in this race, Peter Falazijn, 2 hours, 8 minutes and 8 seconds. Well, at the start this morning, Alan Piper has found one of the riders from America, Frankie Andreu.
So, Frankie, you got through the mountains?
Barely. After that last stage through Isola, it was a rough one because the time cut is so short now. It's just super difficult to make the time cut. And if they would have gone hard on the first day, I bet you half the field would have been eliminated.
Hey, listen, I saw you after the finish yesterday, and I yelled out to you to come over for an interview, and you just rode straight past me. No way!
I said no. I was too knackered. Yesterday was the worst day I've had of the whole tour, and I was just beginning to end. I was just trying to hang on the wheels and I was just trying to finish.
Yesterday was a flat stage, wasn't it?
When your legs are dead, they're dead. It doesn't matter if it's flat or up and down. It could have been downhill. I would have been just as tired.
And haven't you got the reputation of being a sprinter?
Yeah, it's a reputation. It's I don't know how I got it though, because when I'm here, I don't know. I don't think I come close to these other guys.
And Frankie Andreu there, like the rest of the riders in the Tour de France, in now for a long, hot day in the saddle. This is the route they face. The good news is there's only one small hill, a fourth category climb, a couple of sprints, and then a long, flat run into the finish in Montpellier. In theory, it should be a great day for the sprinters. Now let's find out.
Racing conditions today very similar to those of yesterday, with temperatures soaring to over 30 degrees Celsius again. It'll have many riders looking for bottles, but towards the end, the increasing southwesterly wind will push the riders to the finish.
And here's Stephen Roach and Sean Yates enjoying the sunshine. That'll all change as we get nearer the finish. And it's now 12:30, the town of Fer des Oliviers, and it's here at 28 kilometres, Abdou Japarov pipping Laurent Jalabert and Olaf Ludwig for the points for that green jersey competition. And here's a sad sight. Neil Stevens, one of only two Australians, he's been complaining of sickness all day, tailed off by the Tour de France. He's taken the decision to abandon the race.
Steve, what's the matter? You just feeling a bit dizzy and sick?
No, I've just been spewing all night.
Yeah.
It's always sad to see a rider of the quality of the Australian Stevens forced out of the Tour de France, but the race goes on towards the finish. It's been another day of heat and humidity here in the south of France, with only a few riders willing to show at the front. And now the situation is the riders come to inside 25 kilometres to go. 4 riders are out on their own. This is Laurent Desbiens from the Castorama team, trying at last to uphold the good name of the French, because they are still without a stage win in this year's Tour de France after having such a successful race last year with the race lead for many days with Richard Virenque and Pascal Lino. The other riders, Michel Dernisse from the Motorola team on the inside coming off the front there. Philippe Louvio, the former champion of France, and Vyacheslav Yekimov, who is the world record holder of world records because he set 29 of them in a very star-spangled career as an amateur. Now the 4 breakaways taking advantage of a field which has continually regrouped today. They've learned the lesson after that long breakaway yesterday by Fabio Roscioli. And more or less the domestiques out front, but with the exception of Vyacheslav Yekimov, Paul, because he is an opportunist who loves to be in a small group.
Well, if this group can stay clear towards the finish, he's definitely the man who will try and slip away and win alone. He's a rider who can ride 4 or 5 kilometres extremely quickly over the last few kilometres. The 25 kilometres to go banner, they just had 16 seconds, and it's the team of the two sprinters in the race at the moment who are setting the chase. That's the Telecom team of Olaf Ludwig and the Lampre team of Demologine Abdou-Zaparov.
Not surprisingly, because these are the days when the sprinters are going to have to come out and win the stages, because there's not a lot for them in the second week of the Tour de France, the last week rather, of the Tour de France. They have the Pyrenees, the 3 viciously cruel days there, and the long time trial as well. And so they know they must get the sprinters up to the line today for the points for that green points jersey. Just to explain to you again how they score the points for the green points jersey, one or two have called in asking if we would explain it again. The green jersey is awarded to the race's most consistent daily finisher because the 15 riders who cross the line each day receive points. And also out on the course at the special sprint points, there are 2 points or 3 points on each day's racing where they also get points towards that green jersey. It's 6 points if you win a sprint out on the course, 4 and 2, and you score also in the big bunches when you finish at the end. Man with the highest number of points wears the green jersey. Jamaluddin Abdul-Japarov is the leader in that section, a previous winner of this competition, and it's his Lamprey team who are now trying to chase down the leading group. One of the sad retirements in the Tour de France today, by the way, Valerio Tebaldi, who was in that chasing group yesterday, crashes today and breaks his collarbone on a stage which he won in 1989 when the race came along to Montpellier. And as we come under the 20 kilometre to go banner here now, Vyacheslav Yekimov, a man who's riding his 4th Tour de France, won a stage at Mâcon in 1991 when he broke away in the closing couple of kilometres. He is an opportunist with pure speed, and he'll look for such a move towards the end of the stage today. That's if the main field doesn't bring them back, and it looks as though they will. They're just 8 seconds now after bringing the Tour de France all together on the road into Montpellier.
The Tour de France is a male-dominated world. One woman who has fought her way in is Darcy Keifel. After having done the Tour 7 times, she now has the reputation of being one of the best photographers in the business.
At the beginning, I felt like they were laughing behind my back and thinking that I didn't know too much about cycling, and being an athlete in the past, I felt like I knew the way of the cycling community.
I remember a few years ago that some of the other photographers were not very happy because they thought you were using your female powers to get to positions that they'd worked years for. What do you say to that?
Now, being here a few more years, I can understand how they feel, but I think it hurt me a little bit because, you know, maybe I know more people, or I don't know. I know I'm a friendly person, so it doesn't matter if I'm a male or a female. I'm friendly, so maybe I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I understand how they felt now that I've been here longer.
But starting off in Europe as a photographer is one thing, but getting on the back of a motorbike in a very selective field, because only a few people can get on the back of motorbikes, you're one of those people. How did you get to do that?
Luck. No. I think now, before I was freelance, and I think in Europe, especially with cycling, they don't really accept a freelance photographer as seriously as they accept a photographer that works with a publication. And now that I work with Cyclisme International, which is in Belgium, and then the American edition, which is winning, I think that they accepted me more, and they know that it's a magazine that goes to 4 different countries, so it needs a place in the race. And I'm really happy that it's me that's on the back of the motorcycle.
I'm standing at the finish line every day, and I know what a crowd there is there. You're standing amongst 40 photographers who are pushing elbows and shoulders. Do you push back, or do you just stand aside?
Well, I don't know. I used to really kick and gouge and elbow a lot, but now I just, because I know most of the photographers, I just tell in whatever language I have to speak with them to calm down, because you're all there together and you should all be friends, and it's ridiculous to fight because you're just wasting energy. So, but if I do need to fight, I do, because I got there first.
The polka dot jersey here of Tony Rominger, number 131, in action today in the mountains, having won one of the climbs, the only climb today, a 4th category climb, and now shooting away to get across the gap to that leading group. And as we go up to the leaders here, they've gone through, but the race, in fact, is splitting up, and Miguel Indurain is taking a close interest now in the way this race is fragmenting at the front.
Well, that was a surprise move to see him there, but the race has been so agitated over the last few kilometres that he wants to keep himself covered and keep away from the kind of crashes that Tony Rominger had yesterday. Rominger also being very attentive. In fact, Rominger just bridging up to the leading group of 5 riders now, with Miguel Indurain in his wheel. Number 35 is Steve Bauer. Stephen Roach is also in this group, 11 kilometres from the finish.
Well, Stephen Roach, who suffered terribly with a back problem during the early part of this Tour de France, especially in the Alps. He called in his doctor from Munich to come and crack his back for him, and we saw the result yesterday. He was in the thick of the action early on, and there he is today now. So quite clearly, this is the man with the magic fingers that helps Stephen Roach every year. He cured his injured knee as well, and Stephen clearly places a lot of confidence in him. As the riders scramble forward, there's the result, and quite an interesting result at that sprint. Marc Sergeant winning from John Tarl, and Steve Bauer in 3rd place. And you can see just how many tired riders there are as this field splits up. 10 kilometres to go. There were in fact 147 starters on the road this morning. 35 riders though have now abandoned the Tour de France. 2 non-starters, Thierry Marie, who's worn the yellow jersey and won stages before, and Andrea Ferrigato riding his first tour. He didn't start today either. And 2 riders have abandoned. Neil Stevens of Australia, reducing the Aussie input in this race to 1 now, Phil Anderson. And Valerio Tebaldi, who has crashed and broken his collarbone, taken away to hospital. And that extremely sad because he won this stage into Montpellier in 1989. 36.2 miles an hour, or kilometres an hour rather, the speed today. Still on a record average though, 40.632. Miguel Indurain is the leader in yellow, Tony Rominger the polka dot, and Abdu Japarov the green. And that's the way it should stay too when we arrive in Montpellier. And the yellow jersey very prominent. He had a little bit of a rest day on his birthday yesterday, Miguel Indurain, but today he's marking the riders very closely indeed. And the Telecom riders, they are now the only complete team left in the Tour de France. 20 teams of 9 started this race. Only the Telecom team have all 9 riders still batting here. And this here is Udo Bultz of Germany. Very strong rider. And just trying to turn away there. This is Rominger. And Rominger is turning out to be a man now who's finding his form in this Tour de France. What a shame he had that penalty slapped on him of 1 minute for something that was not of his own doing in the team time trial, when 2 of his teammates pushed one another simply to keep up with him in that team time trial. Otherwise, he would now be 3rd overall in this race and a minute nearer Miguel Indurain.
Some other good riders in this group as well. Frans Maassen, who's been very active today. The Word Perfect team not had a super Tour de France this year. He'll definitely be looking for a win if they can stay away. Also, Francis Moreau, the rider in the white jersey, just going to the front at the moment. He's on the GAN team, the team that Greg LeMond rides for normally. A former World Pursuit champion who could as well get away from a group as we get in towards the run-in. And the Nove Mai rider just off the screen there at the back is Mark Sargent.
A lot of riders feeling that their time is running out for a stage win. And this might be the chance, but the fact that Rominger himself, he wouldn't be really expected to attack on a flat road like this, and the benefit of surprise. But Indurain again emphasising just how observant he is. He seems to ride along in the big pack in the Tour de France so nonchalantly, and yet he never misses a trick. He watches every wheel that moves past him. He spotted the polka dot jersey of Rominger attack. He immediately joined the breakaway. It's not the sort of day he would want. He would have preferred to have stayed in the comfort of the field and away from the television cameras, but he's had no choice now with the attack of Rominger, turning out to be quite a finish to today's rather quiet stage of the Tour. Roach now setting the pace, followed by Tony Rominger. Roach riding out his last Tour de France, and Paul, he's riding it out so well.
Well, he's having a superb tour. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, he's having a superb season as well. But it looks as if that problem that he had with his back has been helped a little bit. I spoke to him yesterday and asked him about it. He said, there's no quick cure, but at least when the doctor comes, it helps me to recover a little bit. And hopefully we'll see a lot more of Stephen Roach when we get into the Pyrenees.
Well, Indurain not exactly rushing to the front because he doesn't really care. This breakaway gets caught or not. He's simply in it to mark Tony Rominger, lying 4th overall. But there's a lot of riders in here who would like to win the stage, not least the French riders. because they haven't won a stage yet, and they are very, very embarrassingly conscious of that. Francois Simon is sitting near the back of this group of the Castorama team. He was the early leader in the King of the Mountains, but he met his match there in the Alps, and he also met a man called Tony Rominger, who won both stages.
Really surprising move to see these two leaders of the Tour de France in the breakaway so close to the finish on a flat stage. But as you know, it's very, very difficult as they come into the town here, and the best way to keep away from those crashes is to be involved in a breakaway like this and keep out of trouble.
Still going clear. Rominger, the man who started it.
This could be an advantage now for this breakaway as they come into the town. There's going to be lots of little left and right turns with all these directional islands, which we keep talking about, but they have a big effect on the race because of all this acceleration when you have to go round a corner and into the town.
It's not actually working out as a great group, this, Paul. There's a lot of riders who are passengers in the line.
Well, Bauer, obviously, because of Mejia, who is lying in second place overall. Tony Rominger has said that his goal is to get onto the podium in Paris to finish in the top three. Well, Bauer is riding on the team of Alvaro Mejia, who is in second place overall at the moment, and that has started to put a little bit of miscontent into the race here, and it looks as if it's all going to come back together as we come into the streets of Montpellier.
Oh, 5 kilometers to go, 3 miles, as again an attack comes. It looks like Francois Simon is launching an attack. He's realized that the big field is right up behind this leading group as we pass the Spanish flag there. And Simon goes, immediately marked.
Franz Masson is the man from Word Perfect who marked him there. He's jumped straight across. Masson is looking for the break, looking for the chance to get away as they get into the town. And now there might just be a little bit of a slowing down as they go onto the streets of Montpellier. Behind the riders have just been caught, so they'll all start to slow down a little bit, and it might be a tactical moment to give these two riders a chance to get away. Otherwise, the Telecom team will have to start chasing behind again.
Franz Masson, the sort of race he would win, an opportunist indeed, but a very strong rider, well known to enthusiasts in Britain for his victory when he was the champion of Holland over in Newcastle upon Tyne there. 4 kilometers to go. The kilometers tick away so quickly at this sort of speed. And Francois Simon carrying the weight of France here. He'd like a little bit of help, and I don't know whether he's going to get it from Franz Masson, who will try to leave him behind in the last kilometre. And now we're seeing the whole race also close in, and this could well be a very good bunch sprint here, because they've come onto the back of the two leaders very, very quickly indeed. The Motorola team will sense this is a chance now for Max Chianri to win. The Lamprey team will sense equally that their man, Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov, can flex his little muscles in the home straight today. It's just the sort of sprint he would love. It's quite a long straight. And the other sprinter in the Lamprey team, Jan Zverada, won't be too far away either. Because now that Wilfred Nellison and Mario Cipollini are out of this Tour de France after their journey through the Alps, the sprinters remaining know that the odds on them winning is that much greater.
But it's always very difficult to judge a sprint. Even though Cipollini and Nellison have withdrawn from the Tour de France, there are still riders like Olaf Ludwig there as well who can surprise these riders. All that Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov wants to do at the moment is to get as many points as possible in these stage finishes to try and build up a good lead in the overall points classification, because when we go to the mountains, he won't be getting any more points.
And Paul Sherwin saying that with absolute confidence, and I think Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov would agree with him. Noticeable now that the pink tops there of the German Telecom team are getting their men to the front. Brian Holm as well, because they want Olaf Ludwig up there, who's been finishing better and better each day in the sprints. He was in that breakaway yesterday as well.
It's quite surprising to see that the only team left with a complete team is the Telecom team, because they've really had quite a disastrous season so far. Ludwig was never himself when we came into the Classics, and then when they went to the Tour of Italy, the team was totally decimated.
Well, it looked as though it might have been Rolf Sorensen who sprinted into that corner for the Carrera team, the new team leaders in this race after the great escape yesterday by 3 of their riders. And they've got themselves a little gap. It's the sort of gap that annoys the sprinters, because they can't set themselves up properly when they're chasing wheels at 2 kilometers to go. And it's the Gatorade riders now who have gone to the front. And this looks like Stefano Zanata, who's now leading out. I don't see any sign of the world champion Gianni Bugno there. He's distinctive for the Gatorade riders because he wears the jersey of the world champion. And now again on the other side of the road is the Ariostia boys going. And braking very, very hard indeed.
Looked a little bit like Rolf Yearman coming round the corner, but I would be surprised because the last couple of days he's been somewhat sick.
I think in fact, Paul, if it was Santario Marita who's trying there for the stage victory. Although now he's settled down in that familiar position, I think Rolf Yearman is a better bet. He's not a great sprinter, but he's enjoying his great season. And when you're riding on top of your form like he is this year, then you tend to do things you wouldn't normally do, and that this isn't normally the attack that Yearman would do. He's won a stage in the Tour de France before in Valkenburg when he outwitted Stephen Roach towards the finishing line there on top of a little climb known as the Cowberg. And so Yearman now coming towards the line, looking underneath there to see just how far he's got to go, and this will be a surprise if he's beaten the sprinters. He's taken advantage of a late jump for the line, but they're coming back, and it's the Motorola team dragging this race back into contention now. They want, in fact, to see their rider Max Chiandri in the sprint here today. And slowly but surely they're going to pull Ralph Yearman back into the pack as the sprinters mass behind him now. And the Judo Bolt, I think, starting out, and Olaf Ludwig is on his wheel. Ludwig now lining up, the former green jersey winner of the Tour de France. The green jersey is there too of Jamaluddin Abdul-Japarov. Abdul-Japarov is in third place now as the riders start to fan out all over the road. Abdul-Japarov goes on the left. Ludwig comes through. Abdul-Japarov still has Ludwig's wheel now. And on the line, Ludwig is going to take it. Olaf Ludwig gets it. Abdul-Japarov is second as all of the sprinters flood home together there. The little sprinter didn't quite read it right, and the team, the only complete team in the race, made full use of their team today to bring their sprinter Olaf Ludwig home nice and clean at the finish. We can see now as Olaf Ludwig breaks for the lead here off the wheel of a teammate. Jamaluddin Abdul-Japarov fighting to get onto that back wheel and close down at just a few centimetres rather before he gets on. Then he gets on. He then starts to move to the right, still leaving himself plenty of time. But Ludwig beat him for once today. So in the end, it was a great day for the sprinters. Olaf Ludwig taking the victory ahead of Jamaluddin Abdul-Japarov, Johan Museo, Giovanni Fidanza, Frédéric Moncassin of France also in the frame, but still the French looking for the first stage win. But out on the course today, it was bad news for Neil Stevens.
Do you feel okay? Yeah? If not, you come with me here.
I just feel sick in the stomach.
Sick in the stomach. You want something to...
They gave me something in the race, but I don't know. I'd like to lie down if I can. Can I lie down?
Well, I don't understand.
I don't want to sit. Can I lie down?
Est-ce qu'il peut s'allonger? Est-ce qu'il peut s'allonger?
Il veut s'allonger? Bon, ben, qu'elle mette dans l'ambiance.
Well, we're all very sad about the loss today of Neil Stevens from the Tour de France because he's a rider who would never give up unless he had real cause to do so. The overall situation as the race goes on, Miguel Indurain is still the overall leader. All of the riders, except Neil Stevens and a few others off the back today, finishing in that big pack. No change at all overall. Our competition is attracting many entries, so pens and paper ready. Here's the details. So get your entries in and you could be the lucky one out of the hat. They really are great prizes, aren't they? Tomorrow the rides will stay in the heat of the south of France. We now move away from Montpellier and we head up to Perpignan. It'll be another hot day and it might again be a day for the sprinters. But remember this, the Pyrenees are getting closer. Until we're back on the route to Tour de France tomorrow, from Alan Piper and me, Phil Liggett, goodbye.